Buongiorno, my name is Vermanen. Unfortunately, I'm not speaking your beautiful language. I wish I could. And I always enjoy coming to Italy every time. So I was very pleased with the invitation from Pilar to join you here today at this conference at your military base here in Rome. So, So my name is Vermanen. I'm from the Netherlands. I've been at the Dutch forces 20 kilos ago and in the infantry, but had a lot to do in the operations with communication. And at this moment I'm responsible on behalf of Microsoft with NATO. NATO is an exciting customer. It's a happy family of a lot of countries that try to support military operations in their best way. A lot of things are changing at this moment. The whole landscape is changing, and I would like to explain to you the role that we try to play in supporting NATO in their digital transformation. Pilar asked me to talk very slowly, but if I rush too much, just let me know. I'm more than happy to slow down on this. The relationship Microsoft-NATO is since 1991, and because we are part of their critical infrastructure and in all layers, it's a strategic partnership that we have. And that is something, and especially in their digital transformation that's currently going on, very proud to play a role with our team in Microsoft in supporting them in this. So let me first explain a little bit about NATO. It's of course a happy family of 29 nations, and they take all their decision in consensus. So if there's one veto, that means that the whole initiative will be stopped or whatsoever. In the same vein, recently they declared the 5th cyber domain, which had not been declared before, and that opens up a total new view on how to defend ourselves. It's a must. There's no getting out of there. So the 5th domain is there. New developments, hybrid warfare, we've seen that popping up. And the way we try to mitigate all these risks that are getting at us. We're not going to war on our own, we're always going in a coalition. We are in a coalition, we need to communicate. And to communicate, we need to understand each other. I'm very pleased that you speak English, so we are interoperable in our communication. You understand what I say and I understand what you say. Without that, it will be a mess in the military operation. So NATO looks after that. We have had some tough lessons from Afghanistan that lead to the Afghan Mission Network, which was the first start on how to be sure that we are interoperable. I can remember a speech from General Hodges. He was at that moment in time the commander of the US Army in Europe, was getting to a conference, I believe it was an AFCEA conference in Madrid. He was standing on the table and he was urging industry and the politics to move on and get interoperability. Interoperability is key. So, what's more happening in the digital transformation? It is about cloud. And everybody said, well, cloud, the military, you know. But there are a lot of things, but if you can see this here, it means that you have access to all the solutions immediately. For the military, it can provide you access to information that you need to do your mission. And having access to a lot of sensor information. There are a lot of ways against that to do so. For Unified Protector, the operation across Libya, we knew that there is an instant need for a huge computing power. It wasn't there at that moment. We have been struggling a lot at NATO to provide the computing power necessary. You're already noting that you have been in that problem. The cloud gives you the opportunity to get a lot of computing power instantly when you need it and size it down. The service models that you have, if you talk about cloud, that you pay for the usage. That's what cloud's all about, pay for the usage instead of paying for the possession. So instead of paying for the possession, you go to usage. And it can be as a platform where you deliver your solutions on. It can be paying for the software you use. And it can be as an infrastructure as a service. The deployment, because everybody thinks about cloud, it is about public cloud, Google and whatsoever. No, there are more flavors. That's a public cloud. There is a private cloud as well for your more secret stuff. And of course, the hybrid model where you make use of the information where it is and using and applying the best security features, the hybrid cloud model. So going from that, what is known at NATO at this moment? Well, NATO has approved the policy that I was showing here, the cloud first policy. And that basically said in a nutshell, make use of the cloud where it can. You know, other instances where you can't use it, you use something else. If you start to use the cloud, you need to make sure that you have security, that it's in shape, at the right level of your information that you share. So that means that the NATO security policies and directives have been adjusted. And you have cloud, and on many cloud flavors. I will not go into detail about that, that's not what it's all about. But for NATO restricted side, I don't know the equivalent in Italy of that, they would allow the usage of public cloud if it meets the security requirements that are set. We're in the process of that. That requires, of course, a complete new change in the way we have been doing accreditation. So far, we took a product, we took it aside, we carefully studied it, and if we agreed it's not tempering our security, then we would say it's accredited for that security level. Well, in the cloud, it's a different way to do that. The security can change in seconds, that we need to apply the latest security patches. So you can't check it out then for months or maybe even weeks or days. You need to action right now, so you need to focus more on the process. That's a complete change how you need to work. So if you look at the NATO cloud concept, I make a differentiation between two. You have the white IT and you have the green IT in the field. You look at the white IT more in the offices, the office space. Then you look at the pool of software that you can make use for the work that you need to, you can choose from that. If you look at the green IT, you have the ability to make use of a lot of sensor information from different pools. It can even be other nations, if you are in the operation, that you can share things. So in the hybrid cloud model, you can see, if you take public available information from a public cloud, you can mix it up with your information, which is classified in your private cloud, and make sure that you have the best information available to do your mission. That is where it will go to. NATO have been thinking a lot in NATO Allied Command Transformation. Of course, we were looking ahead what's going on. And they determined the NATO Cloud Vision 2030 in this sense. So where you go in the beginning, and I tend to, though I'm not Air Force, to explain it on an example like that, what happened in that sense. So if you look at an airplane, a pilot needs data to take decisions. And you need to have a dashboard where you need to project it. In the sensing side, you try to provide as much data to the pilot. The point is that the pilot needs to see what is needed for me right now and what is not needed. challenge in that is that the pilot gets an overkill on the information and doesn't see what's really needed. So by enriching the data that's in the processing side, he gets exactly what's relevant for him. If he gets through his link 16 information about unknown airplanes that are taking off, but it's about 200 miles from him, it's not that relevant at this moment to share that with him because he cannot action on it. So you can say we enrich data in such way before we present it. And that is where we are now in the current way. What will happen next is it not only go and it presents what's relevant, it will explain as well, by doing a lot of things with it in the cloud, what will happen in a few hours from now. So you can predict what's going on. Okay? And the third element what you will get is that it not only predicts what's going on, but it will prescribe to you what you need to do to have a certain effect. So in this sense, the cloud, the combat cloud, has been a very essential way of leading your operation. So NCIA is known at NATO as a service provider of that. They're not looking at 2030, and basically they're looking to 2021. They built their strategy based on supporting the warfighter in the delivering the best solutions in the house that can be possible in the time that's needed. Time is of essence. I was already speaking about unified protector, but we have the quick reaction force. And the quick reaction forces are there to mitigate issues immediately before it breaks out and we cannot revise it anymore. But if you do so, you need to have the solutions available instantly. You need to deploy forces instantly. That means that we need to change the way we work at this moment. No waterfall development anymore, we need to do it in a different way. So it's about deployment. How can we distribute software and solutions? How can we develop them? And of course, we have been learning as well during this summit, it is about what share our industry here in Italy gets out of that. So having a fair share in the development that NATO is paying for. These are common funded solutions. And I was referring already on it. It's another way I will talk to it a little later. The common funded solutions will be used under the NATO first policy by the countries first before developing itself. Why? Well, it's far more cost effective. And if everybody's using the same solution, then the interoperability increases and we can exchange our staff with each other. So maybe you get once Dutch people to operate the system because they operate exactly your system that is used at home in the Netherlands. This kind of things are really important on that. Okay? So these three elements what you see. Based on that, the distribution part was the first thing that was really itchy. When NATO was distributing its software, it was literally burning a CD-ROM, putting it in an envelope and send it off to the forces. And they got an envelope with a CD-ROM, they put it in, didn't know what to do, and it took days to get it on, and a lot of issues and a lot of time was spent. And they say, what if we can achieve for the first time a secure distribution mechanism? A secure distribution mechanism to distribute the software, the common funded solutions that are so needed by the nations. And that leads to the electronic digital media library, the EDML. I'm always struggling with the acronyms at NATO, but they're not always. But this is a very good one. So basically, it's an app store like you have on your phone where everybody's common with, and they can download the software. And we thought, well, that's logic at NATO. And NATO thought, well, that's a nice step to take for the first time. We applied the right security levels, that it's secure enough for this software. And guess what? It was a 10K investment. We built it really quick. And in 2 months there were 2,800 downloads by 20 countries. So the forces were able to download the software when they were needed and quickly. So it was immediate access. That went on, of course, because that's only the distribution part. So I draw here the initiative, what we built with NATO, for the development of software. Not only Microsoft software, so .NET development, but as well open source software. It was 50-50 at NATO. So what they have in this sense, you go from the first thing, that's the requirements, up until the distribution, and you try to capture that. You build a so-called dev test environment. You develop in the cloud, you test it, and then you distribute it with EDML. We took 5 programs of NATO, .NET open source, and we migrated it to it. And because it was on the cloud, was it allowed? Yes, it's allowed on NATO unclass. Why? Because there is no operational data in it. It's source code. And the source code then, can be developed on the cloud. We applied the highest standards of security that's possible. And you know what was happening? They were coming from development on servers located in The Hague. And they tried to get an overview because a lot of projects were moving out and they didn't know what status is what, when it was available for the troops. And we brought that to this platform, these 5 programs. And immediately it was clear that there was an overview where, in which state of development and testing this whole project was. Allied Command Operations in SHAPE loved it, because they now finally see exactly with their own eyes in which state it was. If we looked at the testing, they were performing a few, 5, 10 tests in a week on the software, manual. What we applied here in the testing is artificial intelligence and more, and we could do 1,000 in 2 hours. So that means that the level of quality moved up. And if you do development and testing, you can see that there are more stages what you can be smart in. You can even maybe apply things like training or penetration testing, what's so key, before the soldier goes in the field with the solution and is sure it's a real good system that's bulletproof against cyber attacks. If you see this whole distribution, development, testing, NCIA called it now the software factory. We did the test and the nations agreed upon that the pilot that we did will be extended for all NATO programs. Is NATO unique? Absolutely not. This development, if you look at the commercial side, this way of development is done by Microsoft as well. We need to be agile, to be competitive. But in the military space, the F-35 program by Lockheed Martin is done in the software factory, because they can be agile. The quality goes up, and you can have developers from all over the country that have an internet connection and a VPN doing their stuff, their development in the cloud and sharing things. If you look from a NATO perspective, people do not need to travel to The Hague anymore to do the testing, and they can stay here in your beautiful country and have access to all the results and do the development. So there are a lot of things in it. Beside that, the side effect is that it's not only the big companies that you involve. A lot of innovation comes from the smaller companies. So if there are smaller companies, they can't travel from Italy going to Brussels and have the money to invest in that. That Italian innovation can be captured in this one and tested and be part of a bigger solution. So we're sure that we have the best quality and not depending on the biggest investment from companies. I was already explaining on that. So how does NATO sees this? Of course you have the development and testing, of course you have the distribution. So you can step up a ladder. So what you can do, you create a whole process and you add at the end a Chinese menu you can pick up before you go into an exercise or in an operation, and you say I need this, this and this solution because we have an air defense operation, and then it's just download on this hardware that we have here. So you apply the whole new chain, not only from the public cloud, you involve as well the private cloud, which are the deployed solutions in the field. So you now cover the whole chain. If you do that in that way, with connected forces, you can as well immediately train the people, because it's available on the cloud, it's opened up to the military. You can train the people in the NCI Academy, where NATO wants to do that. But as well here in this academy here, I've seen the picture at the door with the Cisco Academy. These kind of things you can train here on as well. That's what NATO would like to have. That people are highly trained to move the moment you move them to the operation. If we look at the context, and I've been talking about common funded solution, that means on a strategic level. You can as well apply that on a tactical level. So test the interoperability, be able to develop in a more agile way, and share these solutions with other allies that we are in the operation with. Or countries, if there are two countries who have been developing for a certain system something, you can develop it here and you can test it to other systems that are in the same operation. So this is a lot of information that I gave you, what we are busy with NATO. And I would like to end up with a quote from Sakti, General Mercier, that a future combat system is not an aircraft, it's the C4ISR system. Information is key. Sun Tzu knew it, and this is where it applied. Thank you very much.